Hello, and welcome to Bold Hearts, a production of the American Heart Association in Central Indiana to highlight the great work being done to help Hoosiers live longer, healthier lives. I'm Annessa Chumbley, and I'm so excited to host this 5-part series where we will dive deeper into how the American Heart Association is impacting people in Indiana. We're also going to give you tips and takeaways so that you and your loved ones can be healthier. This year is the 100th anniversary of the American Heart Association, and you may know them for what they've done on a national and even global scale. So since 1924, the American Heart Association has been a leader in the fight against heart disease and stroke. They funded cutting-edge research and have been a part of discoveries such as new surgical techniques, new medical devices, and life-saving drugs. They've also been on the forefront of health education, helping people learn how to eat a healthier diet, how to exercise more, and reduce other risk factors for heart disease and stroke, such as diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, obesity, and smoking. They've been a leader in developing the life-saving skill of CPR to save the lives of those experiencing sudden cardiac arrest. And they've done so much more over the course of those 100 years. Today, the work of the American Heart Association focuses around 5 pillars. Those are women, addressing community need, ending e-cigarette and tobacco use, controlling blood pressure, and improving nutrition security. So this series will take a closer look at each one of those pillars so we can learn more about what the American Heart Association is doing right here in Central Indiana. Today, we're going to be talking about addressing community need, specifically through the life-saving skill of CPR. And I'm so excited to be joined by Patrick Appleton and Yolana Wakefield-Wilson. Welcome to the show, you both. I have fallen in love with both these people already, so I know you're going to as well. Patrick, you live in Central Indiana, and you're a survivor of sudden cardiac arrest. We're going to hear his story soon. Yolana, you are the CPR director for the American Heart Association's Midwest region, which, as we said, encompasses a great deal of land. So we've got 2 amazing resources, you guys, lots of great questions. Yolana, I want to start with you. Okay. Tell us why CPR had bubbled to the top when it comes to focusing on community need. Why is it so important?
Well, Annessa, 350,000 people die of cardiac arrest outside of the hospital.
Wow.
Outside of the hospital. It's the highest number, higher than cancer. So, and less than 50% of people actually know what to do in case of emergency or even feel comfortable. And then we compiled that with over 80% of these out-of-hospital cardiac arrests happen in and around the home.
Wow.
So the people that we love are those who are most affected.
That's right. And we were just saying before that it changes when you put a face on it.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
What was that first stat? I want to write that down.
350,000.
350 per year
die. So in 350,000 cardiac arrests happen, 90% die.
Whoa, how many of those are preventable?
Well, with sudden cardiac arrest, sometimes we can do some prevention work, right, with heart health, but sometimes it's sudden.
Yes.
And we have to be prepared to act in case of sudden emergency.
So when we say cardiac arrest, pardon this question, but just so we can all be on the same page, how is that different than a heart attack? Are those 2 interchangeable, or correct us?
No, a heart attack, there's a plumbing problem. If you remember Fred Sanford, and he clutched his chest and tell Elizabeth he was coming?
Yes.
That's
the classic heart attack.
The classic
sign,
heart
right?
attack. You feel the pain. You feel pain in your arms, maybe some tingling in your jaw, but you are cognizant. You can talk. You can express your pain. Sudden cardiac arrest means that it's electrical. That heart just stops beating, and there's no sustainable rhythm.
Very interesting. I wasn't sure about the difference between that. So we are now focusing to hands-only CPR. That's what you teach, right? That's what the American Heart Association teaches. Why is it important? Your mission is for everyone to learn hands-only CPR. Why?
Well, hands-only CPR is the best way to keep oxygenated blood flowing through the body. We all have oxygenated blood in our bodies because we've been talking, we've been walking around. In sudden cardiac arrest, that blood flow stops. So when we begin compressions on a person, we are actually pumping that blood through the body until a rhythm can be restored.
Okay, so even without doing the breath
Even
part.
without the breath, because there's oxygen, that blood is already oxygenated. Now, in cases of drowning, you would need a breath, right? Because the heart is stopped pumping because there's a lack of oxygen. But in sudden cardiac arrest, most of the time it's a cardiac problem. And you're just pumping that oxygenated blood through the body to keep the organs healthy, so that when that rhythm is restored, those organs are healthy and can function.
They've still been receiving oxygen. We have somebody in our midst has been the recipient of that.
Yes.
And we're going to talk to him next. But I also want to ask you one more thing before we go to break. The Nation of Lifesavers. Can you tell me that?
Our Nation of Lifesavers is a wonderful celebration to get people from being bystanders, right, to lifesavers. So many people, what did we say? 40% of people are acting. The other 60, 70% are just watching.
Well, I can imagine you're suddenly panic-stricken.
You're panicked and you don't know what to do. So in our Nation of Lifesavers, we are teaching individuals to be ready to act in case of emergency.
As someone was
did,
for you,
yes.
Patrick, and I can't wait to hear that story. We're going to toss to break, but we're going to come back and we get to hear your special story, and we get to hear more from Yolana, because we could listen to her talk for a long time. So you two will stay right there. As we learned, you guys, most cardiac arrests occur in the home. That's where our guest, Patrick Appleton, had his cardiac arrest. We're going to hear him share his inspiring story after this. Stay with us. Welcome back to Bold Hearts, one of a 5-part series by the American Heart Association to celebrate their 100th anniversary and help Hoosiers live longer, healthier lives. So today we're focusing on the life-saving skill of hands-only CPR, and I'm joined by Yolana Wakefield-Wilson with the American Heart Association and Patrick Appleton, who survived a sudden cardiac arrest. Okay, Patrick, I have been so looking forward to hearing your story. Please share it.
All right, April 14th, 2009, the day after my birthday, I had a heart attack. It's called the Widowmaker. And so I got up in the morning and I felt the pain going up my left arm, cold sweats and everything.
Do you mind if I ask how old you were?
44 years old, just turned 44. So I went downstairs and sat on the couch. My wife said, "Honey, you okay?" I said, "Nah, I feel kind of weird." And so what it was, I was having a heart attack called the Widowmaker. So we drove in the car, which they say never do that, to the hospital, to the heart hospital in Indianapolis. And I get there, they put a stent in. You know, they said, "Hey, you're lucky you made it. A lot of guys like you never make it even in." So I was in the hospital 3 days, and 3 days I walked out on my own. So 6 days later, I'm laying in the bed. 5 in the morning, my wife feels the bed shake. And we got a big bed, big king-size bed. It should have been shaking because we both sound asleep. So she looked over at me. She said, "Honey, are you okay?" By then, my eyes had rolled back in my head, and she watched me take my last breaths. I was experiencing what Yolana just talked about, cardiac arrests. All the electrodes in my heart had completely stopped. I was dead. I was not breathing. And so my wife instantly picked me up off the bed, dropped me to the floor, and immediately started CPR. At the same time, she was calling 911, trying to get the paramedics there. And CPR, most people give up after a few minutes. My wife performed CPR on me for 17 minutes.
Wow.
So I always say, just imagine pumping on your dead husband for 17 minutes. And then the paramedics, they finally rolled into our house. You know, they felt my pulse. And right away, they started writing up their paperwork. They pulled my wife down the hallway and it said, "Dead on arrival." They wasn't gonna do anything. I was dead. I'd already got cold, I guess. And my wife said, "Hey, you gotta try, you gotta try." She was begging them, yelling at them. And finally, they took the defibrillators out. And they shocked me once, nothing. They shocked me twice, still in the heart. And minutes passing by. And finally, on the 4th shock, they got my heart back to beating. And so I don't know if my heart was beating or they just didn't want me to die on my bedroom floor. So instantly, they got me into the emergency medical van and they drove me to the heart hospital. When I arrived at the heart hospital, I was dead on arrival at the heart hospital. So now you almost got 30 minutes expired, and anytime you don't have oxygen to the brain, even after 4 or 5 minutes, you have a very good chance of not functioning, being a normal person, a vegetable. So at the heart hospital, they said dead on arrival. They shocked me, got my heart back running. By then, I'm in the best hands in the world. I wouldn't have felt the heart hospital. So what they did, you know, I'm a donor, and so they have this thing called hyperthermia, where they freeze your body to preserve your organs. And so they say they want to cool the organs down so they can use them later, but they also want to keep your temperature low because when you don't have oxygen to the brain, you know, things start to mess up in your body and, you know, you're gone. And so they froze my body for 3 days. I lay in a coma, dead, frozen, no brain activity, no brain waves, no nothing. The doctor told
Patrick,
my wife.
I keep waiting for this story to give. I mean, this is amazing. So we're on day 3.
Yeah.
You're in a coma.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I just had to stop
Yeah.
and be like, when does it get better? So keep going.
Yeah. Well, you know, the doctor came in and asked my wife, you know, what is his last rites? You know, because more than likely, if he come out of this, he's not going to survive. He was just out too long. You know, the chaplain came in, wanted to do last rites with my wife, and my wife said, no, my husband's a fighter. I said, he's going to get through this. He's
So
going
at
to
this
fight
point,
through this.
your heart was beating, you were breathing, but unconscious and in.
Yeah, I was on a machine. Yeah, I was
okay.
fully on a machine. I guess my heart was beating, but I was fully on a machine, out. Yeah. And so finally on the 3rd day, you know, I woke up, and you know, things never really got back to normal. It probably took about, on the 7th day I walked out of the hospital, but as far as just being able to regain my consciousness and everything, it took a long time to really get back.
Wow.
Yeah.
So many questions. Okay, so this, can I ask, was it a spiritual experience for you?
You know, it was. I'm glad you asked that, because I don't always like to share that. But yeah, it was probably one of the most amazing things that I experienced in my life, because while out, you know, I was floating down this hallway, and it was completely dark. And I was floating into this light, and it was amazing. It was probably the brightest, whitest light that I've ever seen in my life. And I had a gown on, all white. I could hear the birds and the breeze just blowing against me. And when I floated into this room, my mother-in-law, who had passed like 3 years before my heart attack, she was on the other side. And she grabbed my hand. She said, Patrick, it's okay now. It's going to be all right. And then she led me away. And the scary thing about it, when I woke up from my heart attack, I didn't remember anybody in the room. I didn't remember my wife or my mom was in there. I didn't remember nobody. But I was asking my wife, I said, where's Miss Stevens, my mother-in-law? Yeah, and I didn't remember my kids because my brain had completely reset. I was probably without oxygen for such a long time, you know, that it's amazing that I'm probably sitting here talking now.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
Did it change how you live after that event versus before?
You know what? As far as health-wise, I was always running, playing basketball. I never had high blood pressure, never had no issues, no diabetes on my side of the family. Mm-hmm. My grandparents all lived to be 95 and almost 100. You know, all of them.
Well, that begs the question, how did this happen to begin with?
And
I mean, if it could happen to you, it could happen to anybody,
yeah,
right?
My doctor, Dr. Ball, said, Patrick, it could happen to anybody. He said, this is just one of these freak accidents that had to happen to a healthy athlete like yourself. He said, it could happen to anybody. And I didn't drink, I didn't smoke. You know, I led a good life, and I still do, you know. On the positive side, I'm happy that I'm here, and I'll take things for granted, and things don't bother me like they used to.
Well, as I've seen before, a spiritual believing person, I feel like God always gives purpose to that pain and that event. I'm guessing you've been able to help a lot of people with your story.
I have, and that's why I'm here with Merit Heart Association sharing it. I've shared it countless times. Every time they ask, you know, I jump in and share. I share at my church, different groups, you know.
Were the doctors shocked?
Yeah, he was. You know, I had a checkup the other day, and he still laughs at me. You know, he said, "Yeah, you're my miracle dude." He still talks about it. He said because I had a less than a 1% chance of surviving, and then even after that, he said, "You're 15 years out in April." He said most people with your cardiac arrest you had, they're normally gone within 5 years. So
wow.
Yeah.
Tell me about your wife, because I'm guessing, even though everything worked out, that could still be considered a traumatic moment for her. How did she cope with that, especially the first few days afterwards? You
know, it is. My wife's a nurse, and, you know, and she, it bothered her for years. Because anytime I do something, I sneeze, you okay? Something drop upstairs, you okay? Mm-hmm. And she's still like that. When I go out of town and travel, she's constantly checking on me because, you know, between her and my mom, I think they overcheck on me. But you know, it affected them. It affected my kids. I had 3 kids. They were like 6 and 12 and 13, and they got to see at 5 in the morning their dad laying there in the middle of the floor, dead. Yeah.
I am guessing that they know CPR.
They do. They've all been trained.
And essentially, she was your saving person. She was your angel, right? Because if she would have stopped...
100%, yes.
He, right? Am I saying that right, Yolana?
You're absolutely correct.
I mean, how many minutes? 17? Is that what you said?
Yep.
I mean, I was thinking 10, 17.
Yes.
She didn't stop. So that was it just that oxygen kept circulating then in his body?
Circulating the oxygen.
Wow. Okay. And as that is a perfect story to segue into, most of these events happen at home.
They happen at home. with your friends, your family, those people closest to you.
Because we watch TV and we
watch
think there's
TV,
going to be
you're
this
in the
grand thing that
big-
happens in
yes,
some
yes.
big place, but it's usually at home
It's
with the
usually at
person
home.
you love, not
Yes.
the person you don't know.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Which makes it more important to know, makes it more important to be comfortable and willing to jump into action.
Wow. I'm speechless. I'm never speechless, Patrick, but I have so many more questions for you. And that is such an encouraging story, I think, to tell of the benefit of continuing hands-only CPR. It's a skill that's learnable.
Yep.
Yes.
And I have to admit, I do not know it. Guess what? Coming up, we get to learn it. Yolana's going to teach it to us. It only takes a couple minutes to learn how to perform hands-only CPR. She's going to walk us through those steps when we return. We got to listen to Patrick, and I know you all are inspired by that. Stay with us because there's more just after this break. Welcome back to Both Hearts, one of a 5-part series by the American Heart Association to celebrate its 100th anniversary and help Hoosiers live longer, healthier lives. So today we're focusing on CPR, and I'm joined by survivor advocate Patrick Appleton, as well as Yolana Wakefield-Wilson of the American Heart Association. Okay, Patrick, we're still inspired. I'm kind of on this high from hearing your story. I'm curious, did your wife, who did CPR for 17 minutes, was it traditional, or I hear so much about hands-only now as we're focusing on today?
Yeah, it was hands-only. Definitely hands-only.
And she was a nurse, so she knew what she was doing.
Yes, she was. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so Yolana, what's the difference? Why are we moving from one to the other?
And we're not really moving from one to the other. We're just understanding that lay people, every day, you and I, community members, can do hands-only CPR to keep that blood flowing through the body, that oxygenated blood pumping through. Traditional CPR with breaths is still utilized with drowning, with children, and in opioid overdose.
Okay.
But in most cases with adults and teenagers, we can do hands only.
Well, and it seems, or it feels already a lot less intimidating, if I can say it that way. And so our whole focus today is to help people not be just bystanders in these situations. Right. And you are going to walk us through how exactly to do hands-only CPR. How do we do that?
If you see an adult or a teenager suddenly collapse, the first thing we're going to do is call 911. Let's get those first responders on the way if you're alone. Then you're going to push hard and fast in the center of the chest. If you notice, we're going to the very center of that chest. Locking those arms together. If you notice, those arms are straight, up and down, 2 inches in. And we're keeping the blood flowing through the body. Again, the speed of 100 to 120 beats per minute. We think Staying Alive. We think Baby Shark.
Oh, those songs.
The songs.
You just do that song in your head.
Do the song in your head. We have a whole playlist. You pick the song that resonates with you. You keep that rhythm, those arms stretched, because we're using our upper body strength, our core. We're not using our arms. Our dominant hand is in the center of the chest, right between the chest area. And then that other hand is supporting the first hand. And you keep going until help arrives. If someone comes with an AED, then we can use it. But if not, you stay on the chest, compressing up 2 inches in, 2 inches in.
But now, how hard are you pushing?
If you're going 2 inches in, it's a pretty heavy.
Pretty significant.
It's significant. We call it hard and fast in the center of the chest.
Okay.
Hard and fast. And think about the recoil. You see up and down like a pump. A pump. So you're going down, you're coming back up. But that's why you're using your core. Your core to go in. That's why those arms are straight. If you're just using the arms up and down, you're not going to have enough strength to go in. Because remember, you're going through the skin. We're going through the diaphragm. We're getting to the heart to beat it from the outside.
So that's the reason for locking those elbows.
That's why we're locking those elbows. We're locking those elbows to ensure that we're going deep enough to actually get to the heart to cause it to beat. Because you're the heartbeat from the outside.
Oh, well, that's a good way to think of it.
You're the heartbeat.
You're actually physically beating their heart.
Beating their heart, yes. You're pumping that blood flow through because the heart isn't doing it itself at this point. So you are manually pumping the blood.
Interesting. That's so helpful. I don't know what you guys think, but I think this is so helpful. Now, tell me about, is it Fred? What have you named your person right here, guy right here? Henry, Fred?
Fred, whoever it is.
Is this what you guys use when you go around and teach hands-only CPR?
We actually can, and actually the community members can get their own version.
Oh,
yes.
And is that the kit?
That's
that
the kit.
Patrick said. Can you hold that up, Patrick,
Yep,
so we
okay,
can see
gotcha.
it?
Yes. Our Hands-Only CPR kit is available at shopcpr.heart.org. Shop CPR.
Okay, so I homeschool. So could I order one of those to teach
absolutely.
my kids?
Yes.
Love it.
Yes.
And does that just blow up? Is that what
It's inflatable.
It's
It's inflatable. It comes with training instructions inside.
Mm-hmm.
It comes with a DVD because everyone has a DVD player, but there's a streaming code. There's a streaming code.
I like that bit of sarcasm there anymore.
There's a streaming code. And as you watch the video, it talks you through step by step on what to do. And our mannequin has feedback. So it clicks. So you know how deep it is.
Oh.
So you develop the muscle memory so you can feel how deep your compression should be.
Memory.
Because remember, we developed the muscle memory so in that emergency, because like Patrick's wife was trained, she knew knew how it would feel. She knew exactly what she would feel like.
She didn't have to make an emotional decision.
She did not.
She just muscle memoried it.
Just muscle memoried it.
And here we're blessed with his presence.
lovely
And I'm so
Patrick.
glad you're a spokesperson for this, Patrick. And you're a fantastic teacher, Yolana. I can see why you do this and the passion that you speak with. Real fast, tell me about AEDs.
AEDs, everyone's like, I don't know how to use it. I have to be trained. We need 2 eyes and 2 ears. 2 eyes and 2 ears.
Okay.
So let's talk about the chain of survival. We're calling 911. We're sending someone. You, Annessa, call 911. You, Patrick, get the AED. Come right back. When they come back and you're doing the compressions, the first thing, it has a green button. Turn it on. It says, put pads on the patient. The pads have pictures to tell you where on the person to put them. It analyzes, it says step away. You step away. It analyzes, shock advised. Push the orange button. Hey, there's an orange button. You push the orange button, the shock is given, then it talks you through CPR again. It gives you the rhythm. It actually gives you the rhythm. But don't be afraid. They may look differently, but pull them out. It will not shock you if you don't need a shock. So if the person is not in cardiac arrest or does not
It's not
need
going to
a
do
shock,
any damage.
it's not going to do damage. So not being afraid, look around when you're in the airports, when you're, in restaurants, grocery stores, look for the AEDs and don't be afraid to use it. Because again, it talks you through it. You cannot mess it up.
You can't fail.
You cannot fail. You have a hairy-chested friend, you just take that pad, you rip that hair on off and put a fresh pad on because it has to be on a bare chest.
Okay.
Let's talk about the bare chest and not being afraid. We kind of shared earlier, I'm a woman. I would rather you take everything off, save my life with that AED, let it be exposed and save my life than to worry about embarrassment. We can recover from embarrassment.
That's right.
Patrick recovered from having bruised ribs, but you cannot recover from dead.
That's right. That's right.
You cannot.
Amen.
So it's so important not to be afraid to help. And you talk about in our faith traditions, should I touch people a certain way? Well, in most faith traditions, you want to touch them to heal.
That's
so
right.
if we're not touching to heal, that's what this is. This is a healing touch.
This is the most important thing.
This is the most
important connection.
The most important
Don't we all
connection.
love social media, but this is the most important.
This is absolutely.
Oh, so Yolana, I can't wait to see you go on and kind of charge up your nation of lifesavers, as we call
We are
it. You are the
excited.
woman, let me tell you.
We are excited, and we've done them with some of our NFL teams.
Oh, really?
Yes, the Indianapolis Colts sponsored some things. I was just in Cincinnati doing an event with the Bengals, and we had like 300 people who were all learning at the same time on the field.
That's
And again,
incredible. I'm sure that,
It is, but with your friends and with your family so that when the time comes in case of emergency, you are ready to act.
ready.
And that's what we want as a nation of lifesavers, people ready to act.
That's right. And after this show today, I feel that way. I feel prepared and ready, and I learned so much. And thank you both. This has been such a joy. And you've blessed that show so much. And thank you both for the work that you individually do for our community and then for the entire Midwest region. This has been so fun. Today's show was one of a five-part series about the American Heart Association's work right here in Central Indiana. If you want more information, just scan the QR code on the screen to find the other 4 episodes on the association's Midwest region YouTube page. You just have to take your phone, turn on the camera mode, and then hold it up, and you can scan that QR code and click the link. If you'd like to learn more about what the American Heart Association is doing in Central Indiana to help people live longer, healthier lives, just visit their website at heart.org/Indianapolis. You can also follow them on Facebook, Instagram, and X, also Twitter, with the handle at AHA Indiana. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed this episode as much as I have. You have a great day.